Welcome to the Cracking the Growth Code podcast, where we explore practical growth and leadership insights to take your organization and you to the next level. I'm your host, Matt Zembruski, and I'm pleased to have as my guest today, Dorothy Aubut. Hopefully I pronounced that right, Dorothy. Forgot to check that.
Close enough. Thank you.
Close enough. Cool. Let me introduce you, Dorothy, briefly, and then I'm going to ask you to elaborate on this. Dorothy is a thought leader and a change agent who's passionate about partnering with executives and organizations to deliver maximum business value, reduce waste, and continuously improve products, efficiencies, and people's ability to adapt, unlocking people and teams' potential to maximize their own performance. So thank you very much, Dorothy, for being here.
Thank you, Matt, for having me. It's great. It's a great day.
All right. How do you officially pronounce your last name, by the way? I asked you last time, but not this time. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. So my husband always says it's Aubut. If you want to be technical, it is French. So if you were to say it the French way, it's Aubut, but nobody knows how to say it that way. It's English, so it's Aubut. And of course, laughingly, my husband always says, or you can just say Aubut.
That's awesome.
He has a lot of fun with
it. Well, Dorothy,
Aubut works great.
Aubut, yeah, Aubut, I guess is the more is the one you do with your husband. Even my last name Zembruski. Everyone in my family pronounces it differently anyway, and strangers certainly pronounce it all over the place. So it's all part of the. Well, to get things started, Dorothy, let's hop right in, and I'd love to have you introduce. You and I have had the chance to meet a couple times on Zoom, at least, and I'd love to have you introduce yourself, your company, and just what you're up to right now, what you're passionate about in the marketplace, just to get the conversation started.
Thank you. So I'm passionate about leadership effectiveness and passionate about team delivery. And now that can mean a lot of different things. So, a lot of times when they look at my title and say, oh, you're an Agile person, so you're focused on process. I'm actually not focused on process at all. I'm more conscientious about helping teams. How are they meeting business objectives? And do they know what business objectives they're trying to meet so that they can get better at it, and continuously improve that through learning culture or continuous improvement or whatever fits the culture of that organization the best so they can meet those organizational objectives and satisfy their customers.
So what aspect, I think it's great. Leadership effectiveness, team delivery that you said at the beginning of that, those are two really, really big topics. What from your, and I know there's a lot of ways to approach those topics, and you have a lot of experience in working with leaders and teams and organizations. Where do you start typically, or maybe it differs depending on the client? Where do you start typically? Do you lean into the people aspects of it, or more of the process aspects of it, or is it just more like a organizational culture? You got to sort of figure that out first. I guess, where do you get started?
So we walk in and want to do discovery. So that's, and in that discovery, it's gonna be a part of all of that, to understand where the organization is at now. We take a look at, how are people engaging? How are they currently working? Which will get into the collaboration piece, the engagement piece, the ways of working that they're leveraging at that point. And also, what does the leadership landscape look like? Are they, if we use Lelou's language, are they more towards that orange? Are they closer to becoming a teal organization? So because that, and when we look at that also, there's also some organizations, depending upon what they do and their risk adversement, will also determine where they land on that. I'm not saying that any one of those colors in Lelou's language is right or wrong. That's not what we're trying to push them to another one. It's just understanding where they're at that point. The other piece kind of along with that, talking to people, understanding what's working for them now and what they would like to see different. And we may find as we correlate that information together that there's some themes there, or there may be some one-off outliers there that maybe, you know, is it that particular team and then they're doing something different, or is it a whole department that's an outlier, and how do we look through that? So, and then just overall the whole system, how does it work? So it's not one piece, it's the people and not just the boots on the ground people doing the actual work. It's leadership also, because we know leadership brings the weather. They impact a lot of what goes on, as well as the whole system, how it works, what ways of working are they leveraging, how is that working for them, and then, you know, what is their customer feedback looking like? How is that impacting them? How do they want that to look different? And then the big question is, what does success look like for them?
Exactly. Those are great questions. It's a lot. Clearly, you have a lot of experience in the consulting world and interacting with a lot of different companies on this, on leadership and growth and just team building. You know, you're covering a lot of aspects there. I'd love to just to clarify for our audience who may not be as familiar. You mentioned a couple different colors, probably piqued the curiosity of some of our listeners. Can you explain just some of the colors and how that relates to the corporate assessments that you do when you do an engagement?
Sure. So we look at, so Lulu correlated a circle of colors from red up teal. Red, and I can't remember all the colors off the top of my head at my moment. I didn't know we were going to dive into this problem. But red, the core of the circle starts with red, which is those behaviors that we see. What's the best way to quantify this? Probably, you know, in those war type situations where you have two tribes that are warring with each other.
Yep.
Just a lot of fight and flight type behaviors going on within a group of individuals. You know, if we go way back in time, that would be a tribe that's just trying to exist, you know, and how they pick their pecking order and who does what in the roles and such. And of course, as we move to like orange, we think more of like how our military works in how decisions are made, how training's structured, and then of course, as we move away from that fight or flight and into that orange, we still have that high risk aversion, but the flip side of it, we see the way that those teams and those tribes work together shifts, because it becomes that, you know, in that military speak, they become brothers and how they work together. So you see a whole different camaraderie happen. Whereas we go all the way, you know, out to the outside circle, which is Lulu says it's orange, and we see companies like Pagoda, and there we can really see what their culture is about diversity and inclusion and equality, and also how they move towards that green space in lowering their carbon footprint, as well as how much they give to nonprofits and stuff. So Pagoda is one example. We see some others like Ben and Jerry's, and there's some other companies that we really see in that teal space.
Yeah, and that's good. And that takes a lot. So thank you for clarifying that. I'm somewhat familiar. You're a lot more familiar with that. And I know some of the folks who listen may not be familiar at all with it. So thank you for explaining that. And that helps, because that relates into where I'd like to go next, is just from a leadership perspective, because leadership's very influential in getting a company to go from red to more the greenish and the more teal on the outside. And I'd love to hear your definition of leadership and sort of what you look for. Like how would you define leadership when you look at a company or a team?
That's a great question, Matt. So for me, leadership is the ability of an individual or a group to guide others. And we can think of a lot of things when we think about guiding, but I want to expand upon that. It's someone can be a leader that may not have people directly reporting to them. We can see people exhibit and embody those leadership abilities and capabilities and skills that don't have direct reports, and we see it resonate with the teams around them in how people respond to them. So, and like I said, we can see that range of how effective of a leader they are through their actions, how they communicate, their values and their principles. It really comes to light as we watch that.
And you can, so you see not only you're not only looking at the leaders and assessing sort of how they're operating, but you're looking at the way their organization is responding to them.
Yes.
Right? What you're saying.
Yeah. Because they bring the weather, as I mentioned before, and based, and that can define the culture in the organization, but it also impacts the organization's business performance, which a lot of people are not aware of, that it can impact that. So where we see leaders that are high in relating their own self-awareness, how authentic they are, and the system awareness,
Yep.
we see that increase the business performance, from sales revenue, market share, profitability, the quality of the products and services that the organization is delivering, and the amount of innovation going on within the organization, depending upon what the effectiveness of those leaders are. And again, whether they have direct reports or not.
Yeah, that's massive. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, because they influence those around them.
Yeah, and they influence not only the people, but the effectiveness of the company is what you're saying. Their ability to deliver value to their customers with their products and services. Yeah, that's so. How important? I mean, you've seen different companies, some that are super effective and some that are not. And you just talked about the connection of the effectiveness of the leader to the strength of the organization, the culture, as well as the products and services they deliver and the impact they make on their customers. So they're sort of like the center of a lot of influence there. How important do you feel it is to have strong, effective leaders in your company and in other companies? Like, can a company succeed without that, or they really need to have a number of key, strong leaders in place to really make it today?
So that leadership group, if they lend more towards that command and control style, we're going to see a different culture within the organization, and where, what's the best way to put it? Where not just decisions, but what is occurring within that. So in that command and control type style, we're going to see the employees maybe not jump in and engage. They're going to sit back and wait to be told before they move forward and do anything. You're going to get more of that. I'm only going to do what I'm told. I'm not going to do any more. I'm not interested in anything else. And even we even see their engagement reduce a whole lot. Collaboration becomes almost to a stop, to a nil, because they're waiting to be told where to go. As well as we don't, because they're sitting back and they're not actively engaged, we don't see the amount of innovation come from them to experiment and try new things. They're afraid to fail because they feel like they don't want to get reprimanded. When we shift to, and I don't want to necessarily use the word servant leadership, but when we shift to a leader that shows authenticity through, how they adhere to their values and principles, and their willingness to take tough stands and stand behind it, and not just make hard decisions, but move that decision making closer to where it needs to occur, we see those teams lean in more and start to say, oh, let's go try this, because we now have a leader that says, what do you think? You make the decision, and also, as well as that authenticity, that leader, leaning in and saying, hey, I'm at fault here and I take responsibility for that. Or they come in and say, I missed that. Can you tell me again or tell me more? So you see them shift to really listening to what's going on around them. And also as they make that shift, we're also seeing them want to grow others. So they're giving them permission to figure out how to do things done. They're giving them permission to fail and learn quickly from it and try again as they move through that, and give them a safety net to make that happen, as well as teach them how to craft that safety net while they're going through those learning journeys.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I can relate to a lot of what you just shared, because you're talking about the ability for the leader to influence and empower their team members, their organization, etc., to really feel comfortable, like you're saying, feel comfortable failing. And I love the expression, the leadership brings the weather. I hadn't heard that before, but I think it's great. You mentioned that a couple of times, and it just has a good it creates a good visual in my mind. It's like, oh, this person or group of leaders is bringing like sunshine into the room, or they're bringing storm clouds in the room,
Yeah.
right? They're bringing like a big storm, and everyone's like, huddling for safety. So there's a lot of ways to to affect and influence the organization. Let's shift gears and talk about hiring for a minute. When you're hiring someone new to your company, maybe to be a peer or another individual who you're going to work with, or maybe you're helping an organization hire people. Could be a leader, could be a team member, could be a future leader, somebody who's more of a rising star. What are the top 3 attributes you're looking for in a candidate to join an organization and really help that organization become stronger in their ability to deliver?
Thank you. So one of the things that I look at is just their overall personality. And one of the things that I ask them to try to kind of assess that is, or not even assess that, but to kind of understand where they're coming from, is ask them what gets you excited to come to work every day. It really gets into what they're passionate about and what they want to dive into and where they want to go. So, and again, we're seeing that curiosity come up, and it also gives us a lens into what innovation is like for them, for themselves, and for those around them and their team members. Another one is that I look at is how they relate. What's the connect, what are the connections are like, and you find that out through the interviewing is, how well did they listen? How do they manage their own feelings as they work through that? Did they come in and make you feel great, or did they come in and make you feel like you were in this box? It was the box of shame or something, just to give an example. So that brings another piece. Another one is just self-awareness. Do they pursue service over self-interest? What's their composure in a high tension situation? We know teams have things that come up and create just overall, not just noise, but just a lot of stress. Or even we have a couple team members that may not get along really well together. How do they navigate that? And how do they help their team members smooth the waters and navigate that also? And then, to kind of go along with that self-awareness, what's their balance between professional and personal? Do they have a balance to keep themselves from burning out, or is it more professional and they get burnt out? And we see that come to work, and then what's their interest in personal and professional learning, also in that self-awareness really brings to light, where they want to go and how they're perceiving it, and even growing themselves.
Those are excellent things to look for. And it's the first thing you mentioned about what are you most passionate about? What do you get most excited about when you go to work for your job? That's actually my favorite question that I like to ask. And that's how I typically start interviews myself, because you can learn so much from that, right? You can learn about their attitude, their demeanor, what matters to them, like where are their values, as you said. So those are great aspects. And then self-awareness, whew, that's a whole big topic in itself. That's a big one,
Yes.
to see how self-aware are they, and as well as, how do they impact the organization? Are they thinking about it from a selfless or a selfish point of view, as you were saying?
Mhm.
Let's talk about, I'll say the industry, just to use a generic term, but the great wide world of companies right now. There's a lot of things changing, right? The pace of change is going faster than ever. We need more agile and lean techniques, whatever we call them, doesn't matter. But you and I are always working with leaders and companies and organizations, and helping them be better or more adept at the pace of change that's happening out there. Like we have AI and machine learning and all these different things that are really moving a lot faster than they were even just 12 months ago. What do you
Yeah.
see as one of the biggest challenges that are out there, just affecting companies in general, affecting their ability to, lead better, grow better as a company, et cetera? What do you see as sort of one of the bigger challenges that's out there facing companies today?
So a lot of what I'm hearing back from our customers is how they do more with less, especially with everything that we're going through, with the interest rates going way up, companies are not spending like they were. So they're restricting back and still trying to figure out how to do as much with less. So that's a huge thing. And of course, those of us that have been in the industry for 20 years remember how we do more with less. And so it's really nice to be able to bring those concepts to them and help them walk through how they make that possible, and adjust so that they can still get as close to meeting those demands with the people and resources that they have today.
That's fantastic. And that's a big topic, right? More with less people, with less budget,
Mhm.
just less time too, with the competition that's out there. And it's an interesting, I feel it's an interesting, I don't know, up and down or elastic pattern that happens in the market, right? There's a lot of hiring, and then there's companies that have a lot of people, and then sometimes companies could get, like, too many people, or the people aren't the right fit or whatever, and they get into the thousands or tens of thousands, and then they're like, oh, big layoffs, and then the layoffs happen, and it starts to cycle all over again. All right, it sort of it makes it tricky, but like you said, you need to be able to. Some of us have been around, so we've seen the ups and downs enough of the cycles, so we can better assist companies with responding to that. That's that's a really important one. And from a just as we start to wrap up the podcast here, I want to talk a little bit more about leadership with you and get your thoughts. What are your top 3 tips for leaders today? And when I say leaders, our audience are current leaders, who are organizational leaders. They're also the future leaders. I call them the rising stars of organizations. Maybe they're just starting as a scrum master or a team member on a delivery team, and they have aspirations to lead a team or manage a team or lead an organization, things like that. So what would be your top 3 tips for leaders today to really help them take themselves and their organizations to the next level?
Great question. So one is shifting to a learning mindset and a learning organization. This is going to allow the organization, even yourself, to foster that learning mindset and shift to continuous vertical development learning opportunities, which really makes the work and the learning inseparable. And regularly inspecting and adapting to assess the effectiveness of those initiatives, so you can adjust as you go along. Another one that is a top thing is foster mentoring and coaching. This allows employees to create those strong development networks, really get engaged, and they're focused more on the journey. And again, to that same topic, makes the development and the work inseparable. So they're continuing to grow and learn, and they're using those new skills in the work they're doing right now. So it really resonates with them. And it allows that innovation to continue to occur. Lastly, but not lastly, but it's a huge thing, leverage feedback. Rich feedback. It can tell us a lot of things. Now, a lot of times when we get feedback, we immediately take it personal and shut it down. We have to remember that all feedback comes to us. It's not necessarily personal. We got to look at it differently and explore our underlying reactive beliefs and assumptions of what's coming up for us. Now, with all that feedback, take a step back and look at it and say, what is that one big thing that's coming up that maybe that we should work towards as leaders, you know? This will provide a path allowing them to support behavior changes of what they want to do more of and what they maybe should do less of. So, and again, that will also help them continue to grow those leadership capabilities.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
And we have a lot of different ways that we can collect feedback today. And some organizations already have a type of 360 feedback loop that you can use that and leverage it for a development journey.
That's fantastic, Dorothy. You brought up some really good points there. I mean, the learning mindset that you brought up first, it's funny, a lot of your thoughts, I feel like our brains and our values are in sync with some of these things, because that's one of the first things I would bring up is learning mindset, especially today. We're at the beginning of 2024 right now, and I can feel things accelerating even faster than they were in 2023. And I'm encouraging everybody I know, inside and outside of industry, just embrace a learning mindset. So your first piece there, whether you want to be a leader or just a better parent or a better friend, embrace a learning mindset. There's so much, just be a healthier human, right? I mean, there's so much out there.
And you said something very key, being human.
It's important. It's important. And we lose, a lot of people, I think, are losing track of that. We're so digital, hyper digital now, with all the AI and with all the chat bots and robots and all these things happening. There's still billions of humans here on this planet, and we still have a lot that we can do and learn from each other. And you mentioned also, related to that too, mentoring and coaching, and then leveraging feedback. And I agree with those. Those are really, really key aspects. And the feedback, both internally in the organization and externally, as you were saying, that's so important. Because without feedback from the market, from your customer, you don't know what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you're the smartest person on earth, you might be going the wrong direction, right?
Yeah. How do we know we're satisfying the customer?
Yeah. You don't know.
Are we solving their problem?
Yeah. And if you don't get feedback, then guess what? Your competition might be getting the feedback, or they may be correcting or moving in a better direction. And then before you know it, you're out of business. So it's important to navigate that. So those are fantastic tips, Dorothy. I really appreciate all of the insights that you shared. I know I took some good notes from this, and there's a lot of good things that we can revisit. And thank you very much for your time, your energy, and the insights you share with our audience today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you much, Matt.